the pandemic only added fuel to the fire in terms of population growth, people moving here from the Northeast and the Midwest. I say all the time, if you can work from home now, you don't need to pay for a flat in Midtown Manhattan. You don't need to shovel snow in Chicago. You start looking around the country for nice places to live. Inevitably, Tampa is going to be in the top 5. You're listening to Copeland Morgan Media, your source for investment property analysis, education, and advice. Find us online at copelandmorgan.com. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. In studio today, I have Kate Storey. She's a local off-market deal specialist, and we'll get into that in a few. First, I want to mention that today's episode is brought to you by DG Inspects, your source for home inspections throughout the Tampa Bay area. That's DG Inspects with a K, INSPEKTS. You can find them online. I think it's DG Inspects or DGCIFlorida.com, or just Google DG Inspects with a K. Both Kate and I are friends with Glenn there, and they're great when it comes to home inspections, 4 points, termite inspections, whatever you need. So definitely remember DG Inspects when you need a home inspection in the Tampa Bay area. So Kate, welcome to the Copeland Morgan studio.
I know, it's very impressive. I'm a little intimidated, but
believe me, there's no reason to be intimidated. So we were talking about this a little bit about how to introduce you, and you wear so many hats, it's hard to even know how to introduce you. You are a wholesaler in the sense that you sell off-market properties to investors, but I know that term wholesaler has a lot of weird connotations, and it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I guess a great way to kick off is tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm definitely known as Real Estate Kate. I'll get people that, call me, oh, are you Real Estate Kate? And I'm like, yep, that's me.
RealEstateKateFL.com.
There we go. I got to get that on the ad or something. But yeah, so technically, wholesaler, definitely specialize in off-market properties, investors, flippers, builders, people that have rental properties. I do have my license. I'm a licensed broker, and I have rental properties, so I'm a landlord, and I have flipped houses, so I'm a flipper. But I would say definitely my main focus is wholesaling. It's not, like you said, there's a lot of there's a lot of interpretations of wholesaler. People that are just trying to flip paper without owning it, which is fine if it works. But I wholesale, with a company, and we close on the front side and we go to resell it. So I like to consider ourselves true wholesalers.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are selling properties that you own because you bought them right.
Yep.
But you're not going to hold on to all of them, and so you share that inventory with other investors. And the company, I think we can mention it, is Beta Gulf Holdings. They've been around a long time. I don't know what their secret sauce is, but they find a lot of properties, tax auctions, direct marketing. We don't need to share all their secrets, but I am really interested in their business model. And if you're an investor in New York or New Jersey or somewhere outside of Florida, considering the Tampa Bay area, it won't be long before you come across Beta Gulf Holdings. So I would love to hear about your experience with them, and obviously without sharing any trade secrets, what exactly is their business model? Where do they find these properties?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So Beta Gulf, I've been with them for about 5 years now, but they've been doing this for, maybe 13, 15 years. So, and you were just talking about out-of-state investors, and for me, it just kind of hit a light bulb. It's extremely important, or beneficial for them, because you already go into it knowing you're kind of safe, so to speak. Once you're in the area and you meet other wholesalers that maybe aren't even closing on the front side, you at least, I think, have a better sense of the area, better sense of maybe those people. But at least with Beta Gulf, hey, we own it, we're clearing the title. But getting, back to that, Beta Gulf, buys about 15 to 20 houses a month. Bread and butter was Pinellas and Hillsborough County for the past, 3 years. But since, the pandemic, we've expanded out to Pasco, Polk, and Manatee County. So, we're doing all the auctions. That's, I would say, about 60% of where we get our properties is directly from the auction, court steps, and then the others, like you said, tax deeds, pre-foreclosure, short sales. We do our own marketing campaigns, which consist of, sending out letters, stuff of that nature. But yeah, I would say majority is definitely the foreclosure.
Cool. So I know a lot of people wonder, well, why can't I just do that myself? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always assumed, well, Beta Gulf Holdings is fortunate enough to have enough capital to go down to the courthouse steps and bid on these properties and pay cash for them 2 or 3 days later to take title to the property. And then once they're in your inventory, you have the benefit of taking your time and being able to sell off that inventory, obviously at some markup for a profit. But you've taken that risk by laying out that capital on the courthouse steps and paying cash for these deals, where your mom and pop investor just starting out is not going to have the capital to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to take on the risk of the title work and things like that when you buy at auction. And so yeah, I just wanted to point out that it's a great business model, but it's not as easy as it sounds. It's not as easy to duplicate because it's very capital intensive and it's very high risk in some cases. You may buy a property that you paid $200K cash for or more, and then have to sit on it for 6 or 8 months to clear the title. And so you have to have the capacity to absorb that to be able to implement this business model. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. I mean, it has to do with, and that's what, I get a lot of people that actually ask that, well, why can't I do it? You can, but from being on both sides of it and really seeing the backside of, his business, there's so much that goes into it. It's a whole team. He has people that look at the title, like you were saying. So he's got his title guy. He's got property searchers that run out and look at the properties that are going to the foreclosure. And sometimes there's cancels or they add a new property, and so he's got to shoot them out that morning to look at it. And having, like you said, the capital at a reasonable, I guess, interest rate. That he can borrow that much and have the accounts open at all the counties to be able to bid, because they take, I don't know the exact percentage, but basically it's,
I think it's 10% if I'm not mistaken.
Day one and then the next within 24 hours.
Whatever you're going to bid, say you're going to bid on $1 million worth of properties, that means you have to have $100,000 in escrow with the county to even be able to register to bid.
Yep.
And then once you win an auction, you have so many days to show up with the rest of the cash.
It's the next day. Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's that. Like you said, that's the other component to it. So
and so for a mom and pop investor off the street, even if you have a hard money lender lined up, it's almost impossible to get the 10% in advance, bid at the auction, and have the hard money in hand 24 hours later to take down to the courthouse to accept title. So it's a high risk, high reward business model, but it takes a lot of capital and a lot of legwork up front to vet these properties, vet the title, and make sure you're not bidding on a money pit.
Exactly. And, like I said, he does have that title person, looking at all the titles for him, but I've seen it myself. I mean, stuff still pops up. He gets stuck with something that gets missed, or that, for whatever reason, code cases, lien cases, and he's responsible for taking care of it. So, he wins and he loses.
Yeah, so you win some, you lose some, but obviously he's winning more than he loses.
Of course, otherwise he wouldn't be doing
record. So if you're an out-of-state investor and you're looking for off-market inventory, go to realestatekatefl.com. Look into Beta Gulf Holdings. Like you said, they're an established local company that's been around for 15 years.
Yep.
They're not a fly-by-night wholesaler that's assigning contracts. They're buying and selling their own inventory, and I have a lot of respect for that business model, because you're taking on the risk, and it doesn't matter if you paid $100,000 for the property and now you're selling it for $150 2 weeks later. The fact is, you did all the legwork, you put up the money, you took the risk, and now you're reaping the benefits. And we were just talking about this earlier. A deal's a deal. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you paid for it last week. It matters, does today's price make sense on when I calculate my numbers and what I'm planning to do with the property? I really don't care where you got it from. I really don't care what you paid for it. And I think a lot of investors have to get into that mindset. I have people ask me all the time, well, how come they bought it 6 months ago for only this much? What difference does it make? This is today's price. What are you going to do with the property? What are your goals? What are your plans for the property? Crunch the numbers. Do they make sense?
And some of them kind of play off of that. Well, you've bought deals from us before. You've made money off, on your deals. I bought, 2 properties, from you via Beta Gulf Holdings. Absolutely. So. And you know what? So have I. I've bought properties from Beta Gulf too, and I flipped them, and, I have one as a rental, and, I know what he bought it for. I know he still makes money off of me. He makes just as much money off of me as he did any other client. So like you said, if it makes sense, makes sense. I made my money. I have a great rental property. It was worth it. I knew the title was going to be clean.
And an interesting perspective on that train of thought is I bought a house through you from Beta Gulf about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It was the one with the safe. and I did a little.
Oh, yeah. Over by almost Tyrone area.
58th Street,
Yeah.
I kept it for about 2 years.
The sad thing is I knew which house you were immediately. I'm like, oh, I know which one.
Yeah. It had a safe bolted to the floor, for those of you that are wondering, and we couldn't get this safe open. We couldn't remove it from the house without sending off for the combination. It was a whole ordeal. And I actually did a video reveal. I'm going to open the safe today, everyone. And there was absolutely nothing in the safe. It was a book of matches and some chapstick or something.
I'll get you a good one next time. I will say it's always interesting things. Unfortunately, you think the safe is where, the most expensive things are going to be. And there's never anything good in there.
Yeah.
People know to clean them out.
Yeah, exactly. But to get back to that deal, I know that Beta Gulf Holdings made money on it. I know that you made money on it. But guess what? I made a lot more money on it 2 years later. I probably, close to, I don't know, but I made really good return on that property, rented it for 2 years, and then sold it for $100,000 more than I bought it for. Of course, there were some expenses built into that, but I don't care how much you made. I only care how much I made.
Yeah.
And people have to shift their mentality. Who cares what the previous person paid for it or how they acquired it? Does it make sense for you? That's when you decide whether or not to move forward.
Absolutely.
So you wear a lot of hats, as do I. You're a real estate broker associate. You're a wholesaler. You're a landlord. What does your typical day look like, or is there a typical day in the life of real estate?
It's crazy, but so am I. So it works, I get up in the morning. I wake up very early, probably too early. And I have to start my day with coffee, of course. But yeah, after I work out, it depends. It changes. And that's why, my friends rag on me all the time because I can't ever make plans, but because I never know, I don't know. Are you going to buy one house today at the auction? Or are you going to buy 5? Am I going to be going to Palmetto? Am I going to be going to Dunedin? So I love it. It's always something new. I'm always seeing different things at the houses. So, it's the thrill, the excitement of not knowing what you're getting. But yeah, I mean, anything from going and looking at the houses to changing out locks, putting on a lockbox on a house, a for sale sign, meeting a client, answering emails, drawing up paperwork, contracts, it doesn't stop. But it's great.
I know you were taking calls from some tenants and things just before we sat down to record. So it's much the same for me. It's always something different every day. And it's hard to even project what your day is going to look like tomorrow because sometimes you got to put out fires and then sometimes you've got, a full calendar anyway on top of everything else. So,
exactly.
Yeah, real estate's very broad and varied. You never know what's going to pop up. But
I will say it too, when you're in real estate, and a lot of people probably share the same thing as us, and they might start out as one thing and then, like I started out as a wholesaler and then I ventured into owning property. So I feel like when you're in real estate, you get a little bit of taste of everything.
Yeah. And I think it's good for a lot of people. And I come across this a lot in doing podcasts as a guest and interviewing people on podcasts. In real estate, you come across a lot of people who are serial entrepreneurs. I used to own this business doing that, and then I sold the business, and then I did this, and I bought this, and I sold that business, and now I do real estate. But I think the cool thing about real estate is it's hard to get bored because it's never the same thing day to day or week to week or month to month. It's almost like having a different job every day or every month or every year because I'm not doing the same thing this year as I was last year, even though I'm in the exact same role at the exact same company. Yeah,
I didn't think of it like that, but you're totally right. Like, for example, one thing I haven't done yet, but now it's my new goal, is I want to do a new build. So, I flipped the houses, I have rentals, but I'm like, I haven't done a new build. I should try that. So you're right. You're kind of always switching and trying something else.
Yeah, and we mentioned this briefly earlier. I'm going to have Glenn from DG Inspects in studio later today, and his episode will be coming out in a couple of weeks or whatever. But look out for that episode because Glenn is not just a home inspector. He's also a GC and a home builder. And we were just talking about the fact that he's built several spec homes in the Kenwood neighborhood. And so I really want to pick his brain about redevelopment, new construction. Some of my questions for him: where are you finding the land? Are you knocking down old houses and then rebuilding?
I'm gonna have to listen.
What's it been? Yeah, exactly. What's it been like dealing with the city, and how long does it take to build a house, and how long does it take to sell? There's all these questions because inventory is so tight. The market is so red hot that people are looking for other ways to invest, and new construction is certainly one of those ways. And so I look forward to picking Glenn's brain about new construction as a general contractor. And so I just wanted to put a plug in for that episode. I don't know when it'll be released, but it's coming in the next month.
Yeah,
so
and
subscribe to our
too.
podcast, and you'll catch that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say another thing is I was on the phone with a new investor client, and he does custom home builds, and he was talking just too about how custom right now, I mean, his customer like 5,000 square feet, but the trusses are still an issue. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to hear what Glenn has to say.
Yeah, me too. So what advice would you give an investor? Maybe they're looking at Florida from out of state, and they sort of land on the Tampa Bay area, and they're trying to make some contacts, make some inroads, build their team. What advice would you give to somebody who's trying to make inroads with wholesalers in a new market?
Call me.
I set that one up for you. All you had to do was spike it. So.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, seriously though, call me. And I'm not the only wholesaler in Tampa. Do I think I'm a great wholesaler? Of course. But there's other companies in Tampa that are, I guess the word would be prestigious. They're well known.
Legit.
Legit. Yeah, we'll call them legitimate. And sell deals. And I think one of them is even starting to close on the front side as well. So, get to know who actually owns the property, who's just assigning it, because there is, as you know, daisy chain where, so-and-so has it and then this, and you see it in 3 emails and you're on all these blasts and stuff. So, just make sure you know who you're talking to and, they sound credible and trustworthy. In regards to, inspectors or contractors, etc., reaching out to somebody like yourself or myself. I always, when new clients call me, I say, don't hold me to it. But I'm going to, as far as referrals, I'll give you whoever you want, and you can vet them out and see if they work. Yeah,
and I think what you find is those of us who have been doing it in this market for several years, we all end up knowing the same people.
Yeah,
it's like, Glenn's going to be in like,
yeah, exactly.
Glenn, I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. And that's just one example. But yeah, and you talked about getting a sort of vetting a wholesaler.
Yeah.
And I think, absolutely. Ask me, ask Kate.
Yeah.
And I know so-and-so. They're legit. You can do business with them. And one of the things I like about working with you is you're a straight shooter. If you send me an email and say, hey, here's this property, it needs a roof, it needs an electric panel, it needs new flooring and paint, but hey, the appliances are good, the HVAC works, blah, 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 blah. I don't even have to drive over there and look at it because I know that you're telling the truth and you're telling it like it is, and I don't necessarily have to verify what you're telling me. But some of these, I don't know, fly-by-night or more shady type
that haven't even been to the property.
Haven't seen the property. They're just daisy chaining a wholesale deal and trying to make a couple $1,000. They can't give you that boots on the ground, eyes on the property type view. But at the same time, they're saying, hey, there's no due diligence. We need $10,000 by tomorrow, and you got to close by next Friday. Take it or leave it. It's a really high risk, sometimes high reward way to buy real estate, but you want to minimize or mitigate that risk anytime you can.
Absolutely.
And I think you can do that just by asking around sometimes.
Yeah, and I try. That's why when I go to a house, I take pictures of all the components. I'll do a video. My videos are not as good as this podcast is going to be, but I just as long as you get a lay of the layout, and you know what's going on. I'm not a general contractor, and I tell people that, and I put a little disclaimer on my website. But if I can tell you and be as open book as I can, I will be. Hey, I think the shingles look like the granules are okay. You might be able to get away with it for another few years, but then you'll have to replace it. I've done enough rehabs and definitely seen enough houses to be able to have a little bit of knowledge to guide you.
And you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have to do the roof now and lay out $8,000 this month, or can you do it 2 or 3 years from now?
Exactly.
Sometimes that makes a huge difference, and just being able to eyeball those things is a very valuable skill.
Listen, I'll even get in the crawl space for you sometimes, depending on the house. I had a phone call the other day. The guy goes, "You got in the crawl space?" And I was like, poked my head under.
And those of you who don't know Kate, she is a small, petite person, and so I'm sure you can fit in some places that some of us larger gentlemen can't. So I appreciate that.
Got you.
But I always end up being the guy in the crawl space and the guy in the attic.
I was gonna say, I feel like you're always in those spots as well.
Like, wait a minute, I own the house. Why am I the attic rat? You know? But I also do like to know and see and understand the bones of the property, and so I think there's a lot to be said for putting on your coveralls and getting dirty and getting underneath the house or getting up in the attic so that you know what's up there.
Yeah.
So what do you think, And I'm talking more now about the person who wants to sort of direct market to the infamous distressed seller.
Sure.
What do you think are some, because you're in this space, what do you think are some of the best ways to reach that distressed seller? What are some things that do work, and what are some things that simply don't work, like bandit signs? Is that even a thing anymore? Does that work?
Yes, you'd be surprised. Bandit signs definitely do work. It's a numbers game, and you're going to get your fair share of not great phone calls, but it definitely works.
And for those of you who may not know, what we refer to as bandit signs are like the handwritten signs that you see at the intersection.
3-2-99,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Fixer upper.
Call now. Some of those are written by Kate. I can always tell because she has really nice handwriting.
Oh, thank you.
But it is interesting that such a low tech, simple advertising option. Do you find that works to find you buyers or sellers or both?
I don't really gear it towards sellers. I don't do the acquisition side. I leave that for somebody else. I focus on the sales. But yeah, I think it does work. Another thing that you kind of briefly mentioned was like mailings. I know that, Beta Golf spends thousands of dollars in mailings. And don't get me wrong, we've definitely got a lot of our great houses that way. It's, again, a volume thing. It works, but to do it at their level, and that's kind of what, again, also ties into the whole aspect of like, why can't just, mom and pop do wholesaling or have a company. I myself, since I'm in the car so much, if I'm in an area and there's just distressed house, I'll write down the address. I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't had like a ton of success with it, and I've probably sent thousands too. Not as many as Beta Golf, but maybe 1,000 or something.
Yeah,
so,
I've dabbled with direct mail as well.
Yeah,
and, maybe me and one of our agents will each put in.
I think I got one of your mailers one time.
Probably did. Yeah. We'll each say, for example, put in $1,000 and we'll do a $2,000 mailer.
Sure.
But you're right; it's such a volume game, such a numbers game that you can't spend $2,000 once a year on direct mail. You've got to spend $5,000-$10,000 a month on direct mail to get the volume of leads that you need to have a successful business.
Absolutely.
And so it's just a different level that Beta Golf Holdings is playing at than what your average mortal mom and pop investor can play at. So.
And another thing, I guess, that ties into it is what's interesting is, Beta Golf doesn't really do any advertising, it's all by word of mouth. And the same thing with me. I don't have an IT guy or gal, and I do all my own marketing, on my website, on Zillow and Facebook and Instagram, social media. So I think that says something too, and it's always word of mouth.
Yeah, and I think to some extent the longevity factor weeds out a lot of the shady characters or the non-hackers, the people who don't have a legitimate business model are not going to be doing it a year or two from now.
Yeah.
And so those people who have been around 5, 10, 15 years, you can have a little more faith in, put a little more trust in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So getting back to off-market deals as a buyer, because you mentioned that's who you mostly look for, and so that's who you mostly work with is the buyer on the back end, on the sales side, selling this inventory off to investors who are going to flip it, hold it, whatever. So in my experience, most off-market deals, they come with very little or no due diligence. They're cash only, close next week, take it or leave it. It's high risk, high reward, as I mentioned earlier. Do you agree, or do you, because you see the back end of the business, do you think it's safer or less risky than it might look from the other side of the fence?
It definitely, I see where you're coming from. It definitely could seem risky. When I first started working with Beta Golf, I was like, wow, I can't believe people are doing this. But once you get your feet wet and you're investing, it's not a big deal. It's very common. People are used to it. So that's another way to be able to tell if you're a new investor or not, is if kind of the zero inspect 5,000 non-refundable is a huge deal killer for them. Our houses, since we own them, they're always vacant. So you can go over there with whoever you need, your electrician, your GC, whoever, because I want people to feel comfortable and you're not getting a due diligence period, but look at what you got to look at, before you're moving forward, making an offer, because nobody wants a surprise at the end of the day.
That is a great point, and it's I think a key difference in your business model at Beta Gulf Holdings in particular, in that, as we talked about at the beginning, wholesaler means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And to many people, it means, well, I've gone out and found Mr. Distressed Seller, and I've made him a low ball offer and got him to sign off on this contract with $2 earnest money. And now I've got my 5-day inspection period to go out and find a buyer who actually does have money and try to assign this contract to him and make a couple $1,000. That's what a lot of people think a wholesaler is. But really, the definition of wholesale is just not retail. It's a business to business type transaction is what the term means. And so one of the key differences in your business model, like you said, you already own these properties. They're sitting there vacant. They're usually on a lockbox. And although you're buying it $5,000 down, no due diligence, no inspection period, that doesn't mean you can't say, hey, Kate, give me the lockbox code. I want to go by there and do my own inspection. Or I want to bring Glenn, the home inspector. I want to, like you said, my electrician, my GC, whatever. You're just telling people, hey, do that before you go under contract, because once you sign on the dotted line, you're locked in. But I agree, that's a much, much less risky way, because you've already done your due diligence. It's not that you don't get any, it's that you need to do it ahead of time. And
it's a rat race. You like it, go look at it quick. If you want it, boom. And it's, but you're right. A lot of the wholesalers, they haven't even been in the property themselves. They might have gone in very briefly and not got a great look at things. So
they certainly didn't go in the crawl space.
They didn't go in the crawl space. Okay, thank you. But yeah, so it's less risky, and you feel more comfortable doing the $5,000, the no inspection period, because you got a chance to look at it. And that's what a lot of the stuff we buy is even occupied, and we do the eviction, or we pay cash for keys, get these people out, because we know it's going to be easier to sell, and it's easier on you guys, the buyer, to go into a house that's vacant and you can look at everything.
Yeah, that's a great point. So how many wholesale deals would you say that you've done during the last 5 years or whatever that you've been doing this?
Yeah, I would say I sell about 100 a year, so probably about 500. Which I think is pretty good. I know
that's a great level of experience.
Yeah.
Too, and that's why you know what you're looking at. And
absolutely. And after I was in it for, a year, I think, or so, I bought my first house, and then I, bought my rental, and then I bought a flip, and I did it because I wanted to, because, I'm watching all these people do it, and I'm like, yeah, that looks awesome. And I also did it too, because I knew it would make my knowledge grow. I'd be able to sell better, or know what to look for, and know what to tell people about once I get my hands dirty, and I'm grateful I did that. So
awesome. So this is all sort of in contrast to buying properties off the MLS, which I think still probably the majority of even investment properties do go through the MLS. As many as you've done, 500 or whatever. There's probably a higher number that went through the MLS. So two questions really. Have you bought properties off the MLS yourself? You're the wholesale queen, but are you still using the MLS?
I am the wholesale queen. Thank you. I will take my crown when I leave. No, I mean, I have. I've bought stuff off the MLS. I bought my first house in Seminole Heights off the MLS. A little bit of a bid war, but and I bought a rental property off the MLS, and I just bought my new primary residence off the MLS. So there's deals. It's different being a primary resident, but I also look for equity, because I know I'm probably going to sell it soon, and I want to make a little money. So I've made money off of houses that I bought on the MLS. I got a great rental. So you can find deals. You need to know what I guess you're looking for. So for example, or just see the value add. For example, the rental I bought, the rents were super low, and I kind of, they had it a little high. I didn't want to lowball them, but I waited. I saw it sat on market for a little bit. I made an offer. I justified my offer, hey, the rents are this, XYZ, and I ended up getting it. And then my house that I'm in now, great area, but price was really high. But I was willing to pay pretty much what they're asking, because I could do an addition and add square footage and add a bed and bath, and it made sense, you know?
Yeah, and I think where people I don't know if they go wrong, but where they get stuck sometimes is they look at MLS deals and they look at the asking price.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's terrible. It's never going to go
Yeah.
for that. Whereas on the wholesale side in your world, if the price is $200K, the price is $200K.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. On the MLS, if the price is $200K, I can offer you 180.
Yeah, and you
it
might
might
get
go
it.
for 180. It might go for 220. The asking price really is meaningless. It's just
Yeah.
an ask, and so there's a little more negotiation and wheeling and dealing on the
Yeah.
MLS side, and also I always encourage people, find out what does the seller need. It's not always the price.
Yep.
Sometimes they need a quick closing. They need to close by next Friday because they took a job in San Francisco and they start work on Monday.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe they want to do a 1031 exchange, or maybe they're waiting for their house to be built and they want a long closing. They want 60, 90 days. You'll never know unless you ask.
Yep.
But sometimes that can make all the difference in getting you the property at a different price because it was other terms that they cared about more than the price. And I've seen that on a number of occasions. So don't just assume because you see something in the MLS that it's a bad deal because the asking price is not good.
Yeah.
The actual purchase price will almost never be exactly that. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's more, but sometimes it's less.
Another thing too about MLS, and this is more so geared towards your like out of state investors, but what's so key and beneficial of having somebody like you, Jeff, is that, you know, whether it's a flip property that you're going to list for your client afterwards, or, you know, a rental property of a client's that you're going to maintain, you know a lot of the agents in the area, and you obviously are licensed, so you can reach out and find out what kind of those other terms that might be more meaningful to the seller are. So it's nice to have, like we were talking about earlier, trustworthy people on the ground here to help with that type of stuff, to finding the deals. You know?
And even like between me and you or
Yeah.
other colleagues that we work with, I can think of a number of times that we've called each other. Hey,
Yeah.
do you have somebody who knows how to do this, or do you know an attorney that, or a form
Yeah.
or a piece of paper? Hey, what should I do about this?
Absolutely.
And we're always sharing ideas and sending referrals and suggestions back and forth. It's kind of just helping each other out. It's a great, sort of network that we have here locally, and we often end up working with a lot of the same people.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's always good to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. And in that scenario where you're trying to buy a property, it's always good to talk to the listing agent and find out what's driving the seller. What do they need? They need a 10-day closing, or do they need a 90-day closing? Do they, what's important to the seller? And it's not always money. I mean,
Absolutely.
the money matters, but
Yeah.
it's not always the primary factor in selling their house.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about this. I think I kind of know the answer to the question, but I know in this market, and I'm assuming in many markets around the country, wholesalers in general are kind of a victim of their own success because they get all these people on their list, so to speak. And I get, I don't know, it must be 100. It feels like 100 wholesale emails per week. Here's a deal, a house for sale, and sometimes it's the same house pitched by 3 or 4
Yeah.
different wholesalers. And I have no idea how I got on all these lists. I guess I've just, when you're in business long enough, people can find your email address
Yeah.
easy enough. And so the noise is kind of overwhelming. So for somebody trying to crack into, make a toehold in the Tampa Bay market, how do they balance, sort of a personal connection with a few good wholesalers or a few good people versus being on every email list in the world and trying to filter through all the noise? What do you think works better in the long run?
Calling me again. Just kidding.
RealestateKateFL.com.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, definitely, I don't mean to toot my own horn or keep it coming back to me, but, by calling me or being on my list, it's not like I'm going to slam you with 100 properties in one email, and I'm not going to email you 3 times a day. And, granted, it is only my inventory, so that's kind of where the limitation factor comes in. But I'm in the same boat as you. My email, my spam, gosh. And it's almost more recently than that. I don't know if maybe from being on Craigslist or social media or what it is, but
I think there's a new batch that they release from hibernation every couple of years.
But for those investors that are just getting into it, I think they'll be able to tell when you're getting an email with 100 addresses. Okay, and they're addresses that are Fort Myers and Tampa and Georgia, and it's like, okay, I know you're not going to all those properties. You don't know them, so that you'll be able to tell if it's just a company that's focusing just in kind of one area. It's probably likely that they know the property.
Yeah, and I think even on the real estate agent side, some newer investors sometimes have this idea that I need to reach out to like 10 or 12 buyer's agents in the market so that they can all send me their inventory. And often I tell people, no, you just need one good buyer's agent, because for the most part, we're all looking at the same inventory.
Stuff, yeah.
You need somebody who understands what you're looking for and who will look out for your interests and your goals and your objectives and is a good fit for you. If you have that, you only need one.
Yep.
And I think to some extent, you only need a handful of off-market deal finders.
Yeah.
You don't need 37 different people sending you emails.
It gets overwhelming.
Yeah,
it does.
It's hard to filter through that much noise. So, well, this has been like an incredible
I could
interview.
talk to you for days.
You would think that we rehearsed this. It just has gone so smoothly and everything, but this is all
So
off
you're
the
saying
cuff.
This is my other career venture? I should go into this?
You might have a career in broadcasting, yeah.
Hey, listen, I always thought about being a news reporter. I don't know.
Let me hear your news pitch.
Good morning. No, I'm just joking.
So now I'm going to wrap it up with a few kind of more general questions about the market and things like that.
Yeah.
The first one is, where do you see the Tampa Bay real estate market going in the next couple of years? And I'll say 2 to 5 years.
This is funny because, I get this question all the time, and especially the past 2 years.
I do too, so I'm curious about your answer.
It's just, with the pandemic, everybody's always asking, hey, what's going to happen if the prices are going to drop? And it's like, no, I don't think so. But so for Tampa Bay specifically, I will say I think I've seen it taper out. I don't know if you could agree to that. As terms of prices, it was up. And there's still stuff that's, climbing in value, but I think it's kind of starting to be where it should be. I don't see a huge drop. I mean, I know people are really sitting on that, but again, being Tampa, I think that we're in such a great niche market. We have so much new construction. We have, I know this is a little old, but, Armature Works, Sparkman Wharf in Tampa. I just read an article for the Tropicana, what they're building over there. I think they decided on that green space with all those shops and stuff. Like, that's going to be huge. So I just think that there's so much growth still for Florida and Tampa specifically that I don't see it going down. I see it going up, or either fast or slow, but going up.
Yeah, I like you said earlier, I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. That's kind of exactly the conversation that I have with people all the time. Prior to the pandemic, we were all kind of looking around and saying, we're kind of at a peak in the market. This can't keep going up forever. Let's be cautious. Let's be conservative. Let's not over leverage or overextend ourselves, because what if the market, sort of levels out? But I think the pandemic only added fuel to the fire in terms of population growth, people moving here from the Northeast and the Midwest. I say all the time, if you can work from home now, you don't need to pay for a flat in Midtown Manhattan. You don't need to shovel snow in Chicago. You start looking around the country for nice places to live. Inevitably, Tampa is going to be in the top 5. Yeah. Or Tampa Bay, I should say. And so we have just huge population growth from the Northeast and the Midwest. Even in-state, people are moving here from higher priced markets like Miami. There aren't that many markets in Florida. And so the population growth is there. The lack of inventory is there. We can't build houses fast enough to keep up with the population growth. And that's just basic economics, supply and demand. Prices aren't going to go down when demand is outpacing supply. And so, I don't see the Buccaneers.
Hello. We got Tom Brady.
Absolutely.
We won the Super Bowl. No, but seriously too, another big thing is not just football, but sports. Lightning's great. Buccaneers are great. We have that going for us too.
That is an interesting thought, because I haven't really thought about the fact that all of those things really put us on the national map. And Absolutely. If you're sitting in the snow in Chicago and you're watching the Super Bowl in Tampa, or you're watching the Rays, play at home, and you're seeing these, what do they call them? The blimp shots. It's nice and warm and sunny and no snow. It does give you that national exposure. So I've heard a lot of people say that Florida is the next California. It's on a similar trajectory to what California was 20, 30 years ago. And while I hope we don't go as far off the rails as California has in terms of real estate prices and stuff like that, I do see a lot of the factors in place. The population growth, the investor money flowing to follow that population, and the limited housing inventory and the steadily increasing demand. So
what's nice too, though, sorry to interrupt interrupt. Sarasota, those counties, Siesta Key, Lido Key, because we've expanded, Beta Golf's expanded and started buying down there, and I don't have a ton of investors, ton of flippers. It's slowly growing because we're very new to that market. I myself am getting to drive around there a lot more, and I'm getting to know the area, and it's just almost another additive for the whole Tampa Bay region. It's like, wow, the past month, a few times I've gone down, for on the weekend to look at a house, and then I sit at the beach. The beaches down there are great. So it's you just have a lot of diversity of things you can do here, and that helps.
So that's another great point. We talked about the fact that in a really competitive real estate market, you've got to look for other ways, whether it's redevelopment, new construction, or whatever. But you can also look a little bit further afield. And as much as there's a mental block, I don't want to drive across that bridge. I don't want to drive across the Skyway. It's a different world down there. When you get there, it's actually a really beautiful world that's really similar to the rest of the Tampa Bay area. So that's a good point, that markets just on the outskirts of Tampa, St. Pete, where you have obviously already discovered, you can expand into and find some similar stuff, similar housing types and investment opportunities a little bit further afield. That's another possible approach that people can take, is to look outside the core of Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. Yeah,
get creative. Don't hold yourself into a box.
So what's the single best tip or trick you can share with aspiring real estate investors?
Now, is this a trick for them in terms of investing?
It can be anything. Like what's something that and it kind of ties into the next question, really. What's an important lesson that you've learned, or a tool, or a time-saving thing, or just a word of wisdom that you would give what would you tell Kate 5 years ago to do differently?
Just do it. I don't know if I have to trademark Nike on that, but no, I'm serious. Just jump in, dive in and do it, because you know what? Timing is never going to be perfect. People that for example, we're just talking about pandemic, we thought, it's going to go down. I bought my house and it went up in value $100,000, and I did not expect that. So it's just like, you never know. And, you can make all these hypotheses and, but looking back on it's really the only way to understand. But just do it, just buy the house. I know it sounds a little crazy to say, but it's all about learning too. As I kept buying more houses, I kept learning more. You're always going to learn something. I know you can definitely vouch for that. Learn something different every time, and just get your hands dirty.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to parallel that, if you're just getting started, the first one is always the hardest.
Yeah,
but once you have
scariest.
But once you have that first property under your belt, you're like, wait, that was actually kind of easy. That was actually not scary at all. You almost get addicted to it. Like, where's the next one? I'm ready to start on my next project.
Pleasant surprises,
So just do it. Credit to Nike. Just jump in and, don't buy a bad deal, but within a reasonable level of certainty, if the numbers make sense, pull the trigger and get started, because time is your friend.
Yeah.
And if you're not, it's different when you're flipping, because sometimes you do have to ride that wave and time the cycle of the real estate market. But if you're buying a rental, a buy and hold, and you're going to hold it for 4, 5, 10 plus years, the market cycle really doesn't matter. As long as it breaks even or cash flows positive, you can ride out the real estate market. Any downturn, which we don't expect, but could happen. But over any 10-year period, the real estate market is almost always going to go up on average. And so, just jump in and get started. So many people get stuck in the analysis part, analysis paralysis. And I joke that I'm on a mission to cure analysis paralysis. And if you haven't seen it, you can find it on our website. It's copelandmorgan.com/5simpleformulas. And we have some stuff there to help you analyze properties and get out of that analysis paralysis phase.
And help you just do it.
Love it. We probably can't use that slogan, because I think Nike
would come after me. Don't do it.
so final question: where do you see Real Estate Kate going in the next couple of years? What are your professional plans and goals?
Sure, she'll be here. She'll be around. My phone is glued to my hand and my hip. I'll still be here to help people find off-market deals. I love it. It's the best. I'm always expanding, always growing. Like I was just telling you, my next thing is I want to try a new build. So, just expanding my knowledge. But I'll always be in real estate. I'll have my license, and I'll be with Beta Golf, and yeah.
Awesome. So for the person who's listening, who's in snowy Chicago or some other market and they want to break into the Tampa Bay market, where do they find you? Where's the best place to reach out to Kate?
RealestateKateFL.com. No, seriously though, yeah, website's great. It has all my information there. My cell phone.
You have listings of your property, your inventory on there
absolutely.
too, right?
Definitely go on my website in a non-jingly tune. It's RealestateKateFL.com.
And that's with a K. Kate with a K.
Kate with a K. I'm glad you pointed that out. I didn't think about that, but yes, and it has all of the properties, current inventory. It shows what's under contract, what's available. It has, my cell phone. It has my email. There's a spot to subscribe your emails. So if you want to start getting my emails and seeing what we come across in terms of properties. And, I tell every new investor that I speak with on the phone is not everything we get is going to fit your needs, but bear with me because there's eventually going to be a property that pops up and you're going to go, oh my gosh, I want that. So, subscribe to my email list. I won't blast you. When I send out an email, it's, just marketing I put together. I put comps, sale comps, rental comps. I put pictures. I put as much information as I can. If I know something, I'll tell you.
Even your poorly done videos.
Even my poorly done videos. Thank you. There's a link for them. You'll sometimes see me in the mirror, but yeah, no, everything's on there, and if they have any questions, they can call or text me.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on today, Kate. This was a really great interview. I'm very impressed. You're a natural.
Oh my gosh, thanks.
And just a reminder, everyone, this was brought to us today by DG Inspects. You can find them at dgciflorida.com, and you won't find a better home inspector or general contractor in the Tampa Bay area. Glenn is a friend of both me and Kate, and we're always happy to send folks his way. So with that, we will wrap it up and look forward to having you on again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Copeland Morgan Media Real Estate Podcast. As you can imagine, producing this great educational content takes a lot of effort and commitment on our part. We only ask one thing in return. Please subscribe to our podcast using your favorite podcast app or by visiting copelandmorgan.com/podcast. And remember, there's no greater compliment than referring us to a friend or colleague. Until next time, I'm Jeff Copeland.